Our guest today is Dr. Woody Clark. He is the founder of Clark Strategic Partners, and their clients include the People's Republic of China and Paramount Pictures. He earned his PhD from Berkeley in 2007 and shared the Nobel Peace Prize for his co-authorship of the UN Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. Dr. Clark has written several books, and his newest, Sustainable Communities, will be released this October. Would you please give a very warm welcome to Dr. Woody Clark?
What we're going to talk about this morning, I hope will be inspiring, will, I think, be provocative for most of you. I'm hoping that, and I know this will be available online through the journal, and also I think the PowerPoint slides that I'll show will be available too. Now, I'm not going to advertise or anything, but let me just point something out to everyone. The San Jose Business Journal is, if you will, the Bible of innovation. Think about that. That journal is read by people throughout the world. If you have not subscribed to it or not been a part of it, I urge you to do that. You have no idea how important that is. And I say that in part of my own experience from having been here 4 or 5 months ago talking on the panel on sustainability. It's amazing. And I think all of you, if you haven't subscribed or haven't been active with the journal, you should do that as soon as possible. What I'm going to do, though, now is show a couple of slides. And when we talk about Bibles, the picture on your screen I think is a good place to start. James is taking a kind of a sounding of how many people get the journal. How many of you have read The Economist? How many of you read the issue on July 17th? That one. I urge you to get a copy and read it. I will summarize it, and those who did read it, if you'd like to comment about this during our Q&A, fine, but right now I'm just going to kind of go through it. The Economist is basically saying that economics as a field has failed. And it has failed actually not just yesterday or last year because it did not predict what I call the deep recession in this country or globally, but it actually has failed for the last 30 or 40 years. Now, there is a story about that from the editors of The Economist, and there's also 2 articles in this particular issue about it, and then if you get the one that's 2 weeks after that, in some early August, I guess, there's a rebuttal, and guess where it came from? The Dean of the School of Economics at University of Chicago. Thank you. I won't ask who is from the University of Chicago in the audience. We can argue about that later too. But the point is that this issue was saying in particular that economics is first and foremost not a science. Do you want me to repeat that? Okay? I don't think I need to, but what they were doing was actually looking at various areas of economics and saying, in effect, for the last 30 or 40 years, and I must say that some of you here in Silicon Valley probably understand some of this economic theory, and as I said, we can have a debate and discussion about it. But the fact is that it's challenged, and I think that's an important thing to keep in mind. It also is interesting, and I'm not now promoting my book, but I did a book called Qualitative Economics. It came out a year ago, well before this article came out. The subtitle of that book is Toward a Science of Economics. And I mentioned that to you, and there's a flyer on the table out in the hall if you want to get a copy later of how to get it or review it. The topic of that was looking at the philosophy of science. Where does science come from, what it's all about, and where is economics as a social science different from physics as a science, or different from chemistry as a science? And I want to start this discussion at that level, and then I'm going to bring it down to, if you will, the ground level versus kind of the 50,000-foot philosophy level. Because what we're talking about today is, in fact, a third industrial revolution. We are talking about a different way in which our world is looking at not just economics and finance, but technologies, how they're going to be commercialized, or to put it more bluntly, I call it the sequel to An Inconvenient Truth. It's okay to change light bulbs. We have to do that. It's okay to have monitors and metering on our doors and windows and rooms and our buildings. But we've got to do more than that. We have to be more proactive. I'm going to go into the details of what the third industrial revolution is about. But a colleague of mine back on the East Coast actually coined the term in a book that he called the European Dream. His name is Jeremy Rifkin, and some of you may know the name. He's very well known in this area and has been very much an innovator for many, many years. He points out, and I will get into some details, is that this third industrial revolution actually started in Europe. And he and I have had discussions, and I think I've sort of alerted him to the fact I think you need to include Japan and Asia, South Korea and China as well. And that's exactly the kind of thing that we'll be talking about today, and I'm hoping we'll provoke and have some discussion about. In short, the third industrial revolution is using renewable energy, new kinds of technologies. It's not using fossil fuels that we've seen throughout the 20th century. The 21st century is, if you will, the dividing point between what used to happen in the world, how our economies were built, and where the future is going. That also means, as this first slide points out, that we also have to look at our economic systems, our business models, and other things, but it's changing, and it's changing as I speak, and I'll go into some details throughout the presentation. I think those of you who were here the last time, I'm just sort of showing this as a little bit of a repeat. I was trying to indicate that there is a lot of information, and I can spend a lot of time, and we do have some additional pictures and things I can show all of you, that we are indeed involved with global warming and climate change. This is it's no longer a political issue, it's a reality. And it has been going on for a long period of time. My involvement with the UN Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change has been well over 15 years. So there's a period of time which many of us have been involved with looking at this topic, understanding it, and beginning to do reports on it. It's only been recently, I think, that the world has sort of come to the same conclusion. And in large part, that has to do with the film Inconvenient Truth that Al Gore had produced and was released a few years ago. And I'm not advertising for Al, by the way, but he also has a new book out, which is getting to the sequel, what people have to do in their daily lives about global warming. But the issue here, and what this is leading up to, is there's now a conference taking place in Copenhagen this December with the UN, talking about how now to update, if you will, what are called the Kyoto Accords, in setting rules and regulations globally. With the new administration in Washington, we're going to see more proactive attitude toward that than we had in the past, to participate in that and actually help set some of the direction in December. But I want to caution everybody to not get too optimistic, because really that's not too far away, and President Obama has been in office less than a year and will have been in office less than a year by December this year. So we really have to be mindful of how much can happen in such a short period of time. Do also keep in mind that these solutions to the world, these problems, are also going to involve countries like China and India and others who are waiting for the United States to take some leadership and ownership over these kinds of issues. I won't, as I said, go through all the details, but this is the basis of where the third industrial revolution is taking place. So if you look at China, and look at this slide in particular, you'll find, for example, an interesting phenomena. I've got lots of slides and information on China, in part because of the work I did in Inner Mongolia, which is a region just north of Beijing. It's also the second largest coal-producing region in China. And China now has the distinction of being the #1 world polluter as of this calendar year. The United States had that distinction historically before then. A large part of the energy being generated in China today is dependent upon coal. Again, I don't want to go through all the details, but the challenge to the Chinese, and they're well aware of it, is what do we do about it? Where do we find other ways of getting energy and fuels for our country? I show this, and I think the pointer will work. I'm not sure. Here we go. China, Inner Mongolia is right here. One of the issues that we were talking about, this is Mongolia, and this region up here, of course, is Russia, is where is China going to get its energy? And what they are doing is actually having pipelines from, natural gas pipelines from Russia going through Mongolia or through Inner Mongolia into China. And the region, which is now heavily populated in China, is along the coastal areas where people are actually moved from inland areas, from farms and other places.